Yes, sir. Two bills, as well as a pipe, cigarettes.
Live here.
A card.
And,
This is the Derek Chauvin trial, and we're continuing on from where we left off.
Correct.
And, Your Honor, if I could show the witness only, Exhibit 198. You recognize what's depicted in 198?
Yes.
And is this actually a photograph that you took?
I believe so, yes.
All right. Your Honor, we would offer Exhibit 198.
Was it a fake bill or not?
Do I look at it?
So the witness is James Rayerson.
And I'll publish that for the jury, please. And Agent Ryerson just described for us what's depicted in Exhibit 198.
There's two $20 bills, one that is ripped in half.
And these were in that envelope, correct?
Correct.
And did you have these processed later for their legitimacy, I guess the question would be?
Yes, sir. We had them sent to a United States Secret Service.
And you also mentioned, you can take that down, thank you, that there was a pipe in that envelope.
Yes, sir.
Can you just kind of describe what the pipe looked like?
A glass, multicolored pipe, a few inches long.
And what did you end up doing with that pipe?
Initially, I secured it in my office, and then I submitted it to the BCA laboratory for analysis.
And so just when you're doing your job, you want to submit something to the lab to be tested. What's the process you kind of go through?
I take it into the
So are they fake?
intake portion of the building, the lab intake portion.
I don't know if the bills were fake or not.
Document. All right. I note the document in documentation where I received it from, and I submit it through intake.
And then was a request made to have people in the lab do some further testing on that pipe?
Yes.
And while you were at the scene, when the two vehicles were still there, did you make some arrangements for those two vehicles?
Yes, sir.
And can you describe for the jury what you did in that regard?
I called Twin Cities Towing and asked for two flatbeds to respond to the scene. When they arrived on scene, each flatbed picked up each individual car, the squad car and the Benz.
And what did you do with them then after that?
When I left the scene, I escorted the two flatbeds to the BCA headquarters
Just generally, where is the BCA headquarters?
in St. Paul, Minnesota.
So did you essentially travel with those two flatbeds?
Yes.
And when you get to BCA headquarters, what did you do then?
I assured that the two vehicles were secured in the crime scene garage in the back of the BCA headquarters.
And why did you do that?
Part of chain of custody for the two vehicles.
And what were you going to have done with the two vehicles?
So to have the crime scene team process the two vehicles.
And so they placed them in a secure area where only BCA personnel could access them?
Yes, sir.
And did you lock them?
Yes, sir.
And from that point, were you aware whether those vehicles were processed?
At that point,
Correct. I mean, were they subsequently processed?
they were subsequently processed, yes.
Do you recall when that happened?
Yeah, May 27th.
And so this would be essentially the next day from when you had them towed?
Yes, sir.
And were you involved in the processing of the two vehicles?
I facilitated it and I was present for portions of it.
And who does the processing of the vehicles?
The BCA crime scene team.
And so same group that had been out at the scene?
Yes, sir. Mackenzie Anderson was the team lead.
Now, because you were the case agent, well, are there other agents assigned to complete tasks for the investigation?
Yes, sir.
And did you or the other investigators attempt to locate other security videos of the incident?
Yes, sir.
And were you able to obtain some additional, security camera videos from the incident?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell the jurors where you got those from, or where the BCA got those from?
One video from Cub Foods, another one from the Dragon Walk restaurant that was immediately across the street.
And, Your Honor, if we could publish Exhibit 1. Recognize what's depicted in this photograph?
Yes, sir.
And you'll notice there's a little stylus on there. You should be. Can you just circle for the jurors where those two businesses are that you obtained security videos from?
Okay. The first one is Cup Foods here. The second one is the Dragon Walk.
And that's where those security cameras were?
Correct.
So basically on the corner of each building?
Correct.
All right. Thank you. And since you obtained different security camera videos from those two businesses and the body-worn camera videos from the officers, did you attempt to determine if the timestamps in all those various videos are the same?
Yes, sir.
You told us earlier that the body-worn camera videos were all consistent on time.
That's correct.
And did you attempt to determine if the Cup Foods video timestamps matched up with the body cams?
Yes.
And what did you find?
I found that the Cup Foods video was 40 seconds ahead of the body-worn camera video timing.
And did you also do the same with respect to the Dragon Walk video?
Yes, sir.
And what did you find there?
I found that the Dragon Walk video was 24 minutes ahead of the timestamps noted on the body-worn camera footage.
Basically, you do that by comparing events in both videos, the same event.
That is correct, sir.
And did Cup Foods provide their video to agents with the BCA?
Yes.
And did you have to follow a sort of different process with the Dragon Walk?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe for the jurors what you did to obtain the video from Dragon Walk?
The owner of the Dragon Walk initially did not comply with requests, so agents with the BCA wrote a search warrant and executed a search warrant to obtain a copy of the video as well as the hard drive where the video was stored.
And so those were obtained directly from the equipment from the Dragon Walk
Correct.
and downloaded for use in the investigation.
That is correct.
And through the investigation, have you had an opportunity to watch all of that video?
Yes, sir.
And portions of it depict some of the incidents that we've been talking about in this trial.
Yes, sir.
And we've already admitted some of that video, but have you also watched a portion of video that we have labeled as Exhibit 52?
Yes, sir.
And does that match up with the Dragon Walk video that you obtained from the equipment itself?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, at this time we would offer Exhibit 52.
52 is received.
And Your Honor, I'd offer to publish 52 at this time. And while this is running, Agent Ryerson, can you tell us again how far off the Dragon Walk timestamp is from those of the body cams?
Approximately 24 minutes.
And it's fast.
Yes, sir. Ahead.
You can take that down then. And have you also seen a portion of the video from the Dragon Walk that we have labeled as Exhibit 54?
Yes, sir.
And does that appear to be an accurate portion of the video you obtained directly from the Dragon Walk equipment?
Yes, it does, sir.
And Your Honor, at this time, we'd offer Exhibit 54.
54 is received.
Now, I'm going to ask that we publish this to the jury. My recollection is about 9 minutes long, so I'm going to speed through some of it probably, but if we could publish 54. Your Honor, I'm sorry, I have got the wrong exhibit here. This has already been admitted. Let me come back to that in a little bit if I could. Your Honor, I believe it should be Exhibit 55. So if we could, and is that, do you recall seeing that and it being a portion of the Dragon Walk video?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm sorry. We could, I'm sorry, can we offer? I'm sorry, I'll come back to that subject in a little bit. Thank you. Agent Ryerson, then as part of the investigation, in usual cases, does somebody from your agency usually attend the autopsy?
Yes, sir, generally.
And was that done in this case?
No, sir.
Do you recall why?
I believe it was COVID-19 restrictions as per the Hennepin County Medical Examiner's request.
And as part of your investigations, is it typical to obtain a blood sample from the deceased?
Yes, sir.
And do you know if that was done in this case?
Yes, sir, it was.
Can you describe for the jury how that came about?
Special Agent Brent Peterson acquired it from the Hennepin County Medical Examiner, brought it back to the BCA and submitted it to the lab.
So just so we're clear, that's a sample of Mr. Floyd's blood, correct?
Correct.
And then that's provided to the lab for any testing they might need it for.
Yes, sir.
And at some points in the investigation, did you receive a copy of the autopsy report from the medical examiner?
Yes, sir.
And do you recall what day it was that you received that?
I believe it was June 4th, 2020.
And did that also include a copy of the toxicology report?
Yes, sir.
And prior to that, did you have much information in the investigation about any suspected drug use?
We had preliminary information, but nothing concrete.
Where did that preliminary information come from?
I believe some of the information was in the audio files of the radio traffic.
And what did that indicate in terms of drug use?
That Mr. Floyd may have been under some influence of some substance.
And did you know at that point what kind of substance,
No, sir.
what form?
No, sir.
Did you know if any drug use was suspected there at the scene?
No, sir.
I want to forward a little bit to the to December then of 2020. Was a subsequent request made to conduct a further processing of the Mercedes SUV?
Yes, it was.
Do you recall how that came about?
Per the prosecution's request.
And what was requested that be done?
A reprocessing of the Mercedes-Benz with particular focus on a few specific items to include a potential pill.
And what role did you play in then the processing again of the Mercedes SUV?
Facilitation. I notified crime scene team lead Mackenzie Anderson, and I was present for that search.
And so was the vehicle brought back to the VCA garage?
Yes, sir.
So when I say brought back, where had it been held in the interim?
A secure lot.
And by secure, you mean where the public couldn't access it?
Correct.
Now, before it's sent to that secure lot, is something done to make sure that it's not entered?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe that for the jurors, please?
We place crime scene tape over the thresholds of all the doors and sign and date to ensure chain of custody, so we know if someone had entered that vehicle or not.
And when you got that vehicle, the Mercedes SUV, back to the VCA garage, did you check the conditions of the tape on the door frames?
Yes, sir.
And were they intact?
Yes, they were.
And did the crime scene team then process that vehicle again?
Yes, sir.
And who was involved as the team leader in the processing of that vehicle?
Mackenzie Anderson.
And were you present during the processing of that vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And at some point then was a request made to reprocess the squad car 320.
Yes, sir.
And how did that come about?
The defense requested to view or meet up with squad 320, and they identified something in the back seat, a pill, and then we facilitated the transportation of that squad back to
So pill been DNA tested to make sure it was George Floyd.
Garage.
So the attorneys for the defendants asked to look at the vehicle itself.
Correct.
And that was done where, do you recall?
In the secure lot.
And then was something that they identified that prompted a further processing of that vehicle.
Correct.
They drew that to your attention.
Yes, sir.
And so then did you make arrangements to have 320 processed again?
Yes, sir.
And how was that done?
Through Mackenzie Anderson.
So brought back to the garage?
Yes, sir.
Now, were the seals in place at that point?
When I got back to the garage, no,
Why not?
because they've been broken at the secure lot
For what purpose?
for the defense to view.
So they looked at the inside of the squad car.
Correct.
And did the crime scene team then process that vehicle again?
Yes, sir.
And were you present for that processing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But did Mackenzie Anderson process that as well?
Yes, sir.
To your understanding that she will testify later about the processing of both those vehicles?
Yes, sir.
All right. So as part of the investigation, did you also obtain medical records for Mr. Floyd?
Yes, sir.
Did you obtain complete medical records from the facilities where he had been seen?
Yes, sir.
And which providers did you obtain medical records from?
HCMC and Park Nicollet.
And HCMC is Hennepin County Medical Center?
Yes.
And those records were made part of the investigation?
Yes, sir.
Incidentally, Agent Ryerson, you yourself in working on the case, have you been in Squad 320?
Yes.
Have you had occasion to start it?
Yes, sir.
Do you know what kind of vehicle Squad 320 is?
The hybrid.
What does that mean to be a hybrid?
The vehicle operates both on a gas traditional engine and electronic.
And opportunities where you started it, were there times when the gas engine would not run?
Yes, sir. The first time we attempted to start it in the crime scene garage, in the first processing, we turned the vehicle on and we didn't hear the gas engine start. So we were initially a little confused.
But did you figure out that it in fact was on?
We did, yes.
So it was running on the battery rather than the gas engine.
Yes, sir.
Do you know if Squad 320 has a catalytic converter?
Yes, sir, it does.
And what is the function of a catalytic converter?
To reduce toxic emissions.
Prior to coming to court, did you have an opportunity to review a video that I'll refer to as a composite video?
Yes, sir.
That is putting together two separate videos into one.
Yes, sir.
And did you recognize that as a mix of both Officer King's body-worn camera and Darnell Frazier's Facebook video?
Yes, I did, sir.
And while you were watching it, were you able to determine if they were synced up? That means, were they running at the same time?
Yes, they appeared to be synced.
And, Your Honor, we would offer Exhibit 127.
Any objection?
No objection.
127 is received.
And Agent Ryerson, what I'm going to do is talk about some timing with this video. So I'm going to refer you to portions of it. So we're not going to watch the whole thing, but to specific portions of it. I'm going to ask that 127 be published in that way. And if we can first go to 2019-18. Okay, so the record should reflect that right now we're at 2019-17. That's good. And Agent Ryerson, at this moment in Exhibit 127, is this the approximate moment when Mr. Floyd is placed prone on the ground?
Yes, it is, sir.
And when this happens, around this time period, I'm going to let this run for about 10 seconds, okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Your Honor. Grab that.
Now, looking at that 10-second portion, were you able to determine approximately where Mr. Chauvin's left knee is?
Yes, sir. It appears as though it's on the back of Mr. Floyd's neck.
And are you able to determine where Mr. Chauvin's right knee is?
It appeared as though it was on Mr. Floyd's back.
Right here at 2019-28, the hand that's sort of in the center of the photograph, that Officer Chauvin's hand?
Yes, sir.
Okay, wearing a glove.
Yes, sir.
In the videos you have reviewed, was he wearing gloves on both hands?
Yes, sir.
Now I'm gonna just speed up to 20-20-45. So the record should reflect we've actually stopped at 20-20-44. That's good. I'm gonna let this just run for 10 seconds, okay?
Yes, sir.
My face feeling bad.
Yeah, should we get the lights
Oh,
up?
sorry. Oh, my God.
Alright.
Now, here at 20-20-55 for the record, we see another video portion within this video, correct?
Yes, sir.
So the right hand, as you're looking at it, the right side of the screen is now Darnell Frazier's video, correct?
Yes, sir.
So this is what you meant earlier when we talked about a composite video.
Correct.
Is there a time during the Darnell Frazier video that it becomes apparent Mr. Floyd stops verbalizing
Yes.
or saying words?
Yes, sir.
And that approximately, well, if we could then go to 20-23-59. All right, so we're at 23:58, and I'd ask that you play this for about 10 seconds again.
Bro, but you can get him off your ground. You're getting a bum right now. You can get him off the ground, bro. You can get him off the ground. You're getting a bum right now.
All right, so is this the moment in the encounter between Mr. Floyd and Mr. Chauvin when Mr. Floyd appears to stop making verbal sounds, talking?
Yes, sir.
Now, prior to coming to court, did you have an opportunity to look at defense exhibits 1045, 46, 47, and 48?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask that exhibit 1045
This is really
placed on the
important.
screen, please.
This is actually really, really important.
And can you note for the jurors the timestamp in this exhibit?
2023-32.
And so approximately how long after Mr. Floyd was put on the prone position on the ground did this occur? Would it help to refresh your recollection to refer to a note? Sure.
He was placed on the ground at 2019-18. Yeah, so 4 minutes.
More than 4
More
minutes.
than 4 minutes, yes, sir.
And then going back to exhibit 127, is there a point in time on Darnell Fraser's Facebook video when it appears that Mr. Floyd no longer makes any movements?
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to ask you to go to 2024-58. And does this, well, I'll let this run for about 10 seconds too.
Yes, sir.
I think that's cool though, bro. You're a bum, bro. You're a bum for that. You're a bum for that, bro. You get mad.
So is this approximately the time when afterwards Mr. Floyd does not appear to make any movement?
Yes, sir.
For the record, we stopped at 20:25:08, and in this photograph, the still portion of the Facebook video or the Darnell Fraser video, does it appear that Mr. Chauvin is using his weight to hold Mr. Floyd down?
Yes, it does.
I'm going to ask to show you exhibit 1046. Can you tell the jurors, the timestamp from this exhibit?
2026-40.
And so how long after the time that Mr. Floyd no longer appears to be moving is this photograph taken?
Approximately 7 minutes.
I'm sorry, from the previous photograph?
Oh, from the previous, I'm sorry. Approximately 3 minutes.
Okay, so we know that the moment where he stopped moving, we had roughly 20:24:58, correct?
Correct.
And so from that time to the time on this photograph is about how long?
From 2020-48.
From 20:24:58 to 20:26, roughly 2 minutes, right?
Yeah, 2 minutes.
So exhibit 1046 portrays a time after Mr. Floyd had appeared to stop moving.
Correct.
Are you able to tell from the Darnell Fraser video when the paramedics arrived?
Yes, sir.
So I would like to go back to 127 then and advance to 20:27:20. All right, so here the record should reflect we're at 20:27:18. That's close enough. I ask you to play about 10 seconds of that.
When you teenage seven, bro, you're a bum, bro. 97, bro, you're a bum.
one of the paramedics walking it, correct?
Correct.
And so the timestamp here is 20:27:40, correct?
Correct.
And now I'm going to toggle back, I'm sorry, to exhibit 1047. You see the exhibit there?
Yes, sir.
And the timestamp on exhibit 1047, you see that?
Yes, sir.
And then also to exhibit 1048,
Yes, sir.
you see the timestamp there?
Yes, sir.
Do those two still photos depict a time after the paramedics arrived?
Yes, sir.
Based on your work on the case and your review of the videos, is there a moment in exhibit 127? You can take that. Is there a moment in exhibit 127 where you think you can see better the placement of Officer Chauvin's right knee?
Yes, sir.
And I would ask to go back to 127 at 20:28:43. All right, 20:28:43. And what I would like to have you do, Agent Ryerson, while we're frozen here on this moment, if you would take the cursor and illustrate to the jurors where Officer Chauvin's right knee is. All right. And so what I'd like to do then, I'll remove that and have the video played. Okay, you can go ahead. Okay, we'll just stop the video there. Were you able to see there when he had his right knee on Mr. Floyd's back?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, to keep things moving, I think I will deal with that previous video at a separate time and continue. That's all I have. Thank you.
Sure. We'll take a moment.
Interesting. I mean,
All right, Lou, so what we're sidebarring now?
Yeah, so you can see the prosecution is going through the body camera video a little more meticulously and identifying the points at which it appears that George Floyd goes unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to the state's case as far as having this timeline.
The timing of it,
and
yeah.
what was done, what was George Floyd's state at each point that something was either done or not done, actually, in this case.
And he's been on the stand for quite some time
so
now.
it shows that he wasn't showing
it sounds like they're going to
resistance
go over a lot of
for a
stuff, because you
long
also
period of
heard them
time.
mention the drugs that were found in a later search of both George Floyd's car and the squad car. And so they established that. I assume that they will go back to it, but if not, Eric Nelson is certainly going to drill into that during cross-examination, because that's part of it that he believes helps his case.
And for people who weren't or just tuning in, this is the lead BCA investigator.
Right. The BCA investigates any officer-involved case that involves the Minneapolis Police Department. Anytime the officer is the suspect in a case involving Minneapolis Police, they use the BCA to come in and so that they can say, hey, our hands are off now. BCA is doing the investigation. And he was the one leading the investigation, meaning, you know, he's the lead investigator. They call it the case agent for the BCA.
Are they back now? I can't hear in court.
No, they're not.
No, okay.
But that's
and
interesting
so,
because, yeah, it
obviously,
shows
we
a
still
real
have
timeline
The
of where
cross-examination and then redirect. and
there's
then we
no
have
possibility
Well,
that
we don't know what comes
George
after
Floyd could have
this witness,
resisted,
but
essentially,
if they are
and
at the
that's
point
a
where they
really
talk to more
crucial
BCA
point.
agents, then you know there could be more. We don't know exactly what they're going to.
We just know there might be more witnesses today, is all I mean.
Yes, exactly. A lot of these discussions have to do with the visual aids that they're showing. The sides kind of have to both be aware of what they're putting up there.
Your Honor, subject to calling Mr. Ryerson or Agent Ryerson, there's one issue that we have to clean up, but I'm prepared enough on that.
All right.
Good afternoon, Agent Ryerson.
Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you for being here. So you testified that you were the primary case agent in this particular case.
Yes,
correct?
sir.
And it's fair to say that the BCA's investigation into this case was fairly extensive, correct?
Yes, sir.
You would agree that approximately 50 BCA agents were involved in this case in one form or another?
Yes, sir.
Those BCA agents were frequently paired up with agents of the Federal Bureau of Investigation or other law enforcement agencies.
That's correct.
Would you agree that roughly 25, 26 FBI agents participated in your investigation?
Yes, sir.
Would you agree that ultimately, all things told, the BCA executed approximately a dozen search warrants in this case?
Yes, sir.
There was an extensive amount of information that was gathered by the BCA. Agreed?
Yes, sir.
A lot of that information is ultimately has no bearing on this case. Agreed? Meaning, interviews were conducted, for example, of people who didn't see anything.
That did occur. However, I believe that, our investigation is very thorough.
Right. And that's what I'm trying to just gather. It was more than just watching a few minutes of video, piecing a couple of things together, interviewing a couple people, right?
Yes, sir.
In fact, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that roughly 200 citizen witnesses were interviewed in this
Yes.
case.
Yes, sir.
And so when we break down and we look at those citizen witnesses, the purpose of any investigation is to gather as much information as is possible, right?
Yes, sir.
And to preserve that information for further review to determine at a later point if it does or doesn't become relevant to a criminal investigation, right?
Yes.
So in terms of, say, the citizen witnesses, the BCA agents interviewed many witnesses who did not observe, they weren't present, for example, correct?
Yes, sir.
People who live in the area, agents went and canvassed the area, knocked on doors, talked to people at local businesses, and they said, oh, I wasn't there at that time, I was somewhere else, right?
Correct.
BCA agents worked hard to identify people who may have seen some portion of that, correct? Of this incident, correct?
Yes, sir.
So things that BCA agents did would include trying to read license plate numbers on cars that were passing by, looking up the registered owners of those cars and going and interviewing them, correct?
Yes, sir.
And sometimes people acknowledged being in that area. Sometimes they said, we weren't there,
Yes, sir.
right? There were also witnesses that the BCA agents interviewed that provided just sort of background information, right?
Yes, sir.
So, for example, the owner of the vehicle that was being driven by Mr. Floyd was not present that day, but she was interviewed, correct?
I believe so. Yes, sir.
Right. And your job as the lead case agent is to sort of quarterback all of this, right?
Yes, sir.
And as other agents receive information, you take it and you maintain a data file, correct?
Correct.
And every time a BCA agent performs some task, the way the BCA works is a new report is generated for that particular task. Agreed?
That is correct.
So rather than having one
Okay.
officer write a long narrative,
I'm going to
police
stop it
report,
for now,
they will
but
write several
in
police
general,
reports.
I'm looking I'm gonna start doing these again when we get to the medical kind of reports. But yeah, thank you. It's just documenting my reaction. I will speak more when I have more to say, but in terms of that, that was just that kind of fully demonstrated, you know, how long the period was between when George Floyd couldn't have resisted and the ambulance or the paramedics arrival. And that is obviously very, very important. Again, I need to clarify some things on legal issues that I don't understand, because from my common sense point of view, there are arguments being made on the defense side that don't work for me, but it may be legally they are something that needs to be taken into consideration. I don't understand how, but you know, apparently they do. And because I want to make a video just saying maybe it's true that legally that Chauvin isn't you know, criminally irresponsible, but then we have to concern ourselves about the actual law if that's the case, because there's no way that I can see that he wasn't responsible on many different levels for George Floyd's death because of his treatment of George Floyd. But those things don't seem to be being taken into consideration, either by the prosecution and certainly not by the defense. So that is my reaction, and thanks so much. Thank you.